Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to episode Paranormal Addicts podcast, season 3. We are already on episode 11 for the year, which is good considering we've had last week we didn't have a show because my guest decided not to show up. You gotta love when that happens. So we'll start out like we always do, guys. For the people out there watching that don't know you guys, JD and Cooper, just introduce yourself to everybody, and then we will get going.
So I'm JD Curry. I started the Pioneer Paranormal Society at Alfred State College and NEPI, New Era Paranormal Investigators for the Western New York area. And Cooper's going to be heading up that group.
I'm Cooper Shreves. I am the president of New Era Paranormal, and I'm a writer on the side. I joined New Era about 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago now.
All right, so today's episode is we're talking about building teams, creating content, and what it really takes to grow in the paranormal field. Because we've all been doing this a couple 24 hours, so that's what we're going to talk about. All right. So I'll ask the question, and then you can both just take turns answering it. So for the people out there that may not know, how did you both get started in the field?
Well, it's kind of a family thing for me. My mom was really into it and had a lot of experiences, and I started with my cousins trying to get experience, mess around with it, see what we could figure out and experience with it.
My mom is a public librarian, so she would just bring me to the library all the time, and eventually I found the whole paranormal section, and I've been obsessed ever since.
Yeah, so I mean, for the people who don't know my story, so I was one of the lucky ones that was born with the gifts. I consider them gifts now. I didn't particularly consider them a gift when I was a kid, but I just my first book just came out a couple months ago, and that's actually like my opening statement is most people's first memory is of their first bike or their first whatever. Mine is the first time I saw an apparition in my hallway. So that's my story. I went on my first actual investigation at 12, and it became my passion at 18. Okay, JD, you founded the Pioneer Paranormal Society. How did that come together?
Yeah, so I was doing stuff on my own with my cousins and some friends, and then I decided to formalize it because before the paranormal, I was really into robotics, and I founded a robotics team for the school. So I kind of figured out how to form a paranormal college at Alfred State College, which is a SUNY accredited school. They're really good about starting new organizations, providing opportunities for students, so it was a good place to start.
So that kind of leads us to the next question, which was, what was it like bringing the paranormal into the college environment?
It was interesting. At first, we were the goth and weirdos, but eventually the school ended up liking us a lot and really supporting us, so it's good.
That's always good when you support's the big key. So I didn't realize how unique this was until I started doing the podcast, but I actually have a degree in parapsychology. And I actually have a degree in parapsychology, 2 in theology, and then I'm a trained demonologist under Bishop Long. So I consider myself an educated investigator, not just an investigator. And that's not bragging. That's just from my standpoint. From my standpoint, I try to look at the paranormal as a we'll consider it pseudoscience. I hate that pseudo word. So to me, we're a science. So I want to come into it educated. I keep telling people that I will stop investigating once we're actually a science. Until then, I'm going to keep investigating. So I might be investigating as a ghost. So I may be joining somebody later on an investigation after I die. I don't know. So how do you guys look at the paranormal? Do you look at it from a scientific standpoint? Do you look at it from a religious standpoint? Do you look at, I mean, just what is your guys' theory about the paranormal? How do you go about it?
Okay, my bad. So my outlook on it nowadays is more of a spiritual, religious approach. I have enough of a experience that I believe there are spirits among us. I don't really question that anymore. It's more of how do we prove their existence. And my background is actually in IT, so communications is a big aspect of my experience.
I like taking it from this sort of historical context, I guess, because there's always been hauntings and there's always been that sort of activity going back forever. There's been just stories being taken down, and I think that it's still happening and there's still people putting on these stories and talking about what's happening, and I like taking it from that scientific aspect too of trying to prove that it exists, basically.
Yeah, so I definitely go about it, I guess, a hybrid thing, because I mean, I like the scientific proof, I like it, but I definitely take it from a religious standpoint too. I mean, one thing I've shared before, especially with Wayne and people like that, that definitely come from the religious background. I was told by this 60-some-odd-year-old lady in the hospital in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, when I was 6 years old, that I was going to hell and I was a tool of the devil because of my gifts. So I've learned since then, when I call them my gifts, to me, they're gifts from God. God gave me the gifts to use to help people. So that's that. And so that's why I have the 2 degrees in theology. And that's why my second book's getting ready to come out. My third book is actually, I just started writing it. And it's actually called, the title, the working title of my third book is, Hold On, Wait, You're a Christian and a paranormal investigator? How's that work? And I actually got that title because I was a featured guest at Smoky Mountain Terror last year, and I was talking to. I'm not going to drop names because I don't know if she's comfortable with it, but I was talking with the actress from the Blair Witch Project. Okay, so and I had been talking to her for like 30 minutes because we were on the lunch break where people couldn't come onto the floor, so we were just talking, and her line started to get backed up, so I excused myself back to my table. And as I was leaving her table, she noticed that I have a tattoo that says "Born Again." I don't know if you can see that on there. But so as I was walking back to my table, she's like, "Hold on." She's like, "Hold on, Kent." She's like, "Let me get this right. You're a paranormal investigator, and you're a Christian and a demonologist." She's like, "How does that work for you?" I'm like, "It works good for me." I was like, "I don't." So that was actually exactly how she said it. So that's actually the title of the book. So yeah. So and I've debated so many people on that. I'm actually going to do a whole episode one time just that. Let's see. Okay, so this is a question for both of you.
On that note, I do have a topic to discuss if you're open to discussing it. For Christianity, like most of the literature says that if you speak with spirit, that that's a bad thing. And I don't feel that way. Obviously, you don't feel that way, but I feel like religion also changes with time because we have that
It
aspect
does.
and then the LGBTQ who are God's children anyways. So
I think that the Bible changes a lot because we have different like social beliefs now, so it's gonna change over time of
yeah,
our
Yeah.
beliefs about
So,
ghosts and other things that we're a lot
well,
more open to now than ancient people would have been.
so just from a translation standpoint, okay. So, so all of our translations that we have, so King James version, or as I like to call it, the old King Jimmy version, you know, it's a paraphrased translation. So what that means for the people who don't know, that means a bunch of men, because this was in a time when women couldn't talk. So
Yep.
a bunch of men gathered around, and King James is like, I want an English translation of the Bible. He's like, and I want it to read like Shakespeare. So a bunch of men gathered up and they read the Bible, and they're like, "Oh, this is what it means to us." So they got together and voted, and that's what it got read. So what's interesting, we kind of opened up a can of worms here, but that's okay. I like this topic. We can talk about it. So the verse that a lot of people like to use against the paranormal field in the King James version, it says, "Do not talk to the living dead, because you do not know if they're good or evil." That's the King James version
yeah,
translation. Now, if you take the actual Latin translation, and remember, I got 2 degrees from one from Louisville Bible College and one from Incontinent University. So if you take the actual Latin version and translate it, it translates a little bit different. The King James version left out some words. So the actual Latin version says, "Do not talk to the living dead unless you are trained or gifted, because only then will you know if it's good or evil." So that translation makes a big difference. And then the other thing I like to point out to, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and call them Christians, because it's not my job to judge people. But
yeah.
they're like, there's no such thing as ghosts in the Bible. I'm like, hold on. I was like, hold on. I was like, so let's talk about Jesus. I'm like, Jesus, that's our Savior, right? So Jesus actually said in his own words twice, "Fear not, because I am not a ghost." The first time he said it was when he walked on water and calmed the storm. He said to his disciples, "Do not fear, I am not a ghost." The second time he said it is even more important, because it was after his resurrection. So Sunday is Easter. So I guess this would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday, when he came back from the dead and he reappeared to his disciples, he said, "Fear not, I am not a ghost, I am of flesh." So Jesus,
Yeah.
and Jesus could have said anything. He could have said, "Fear not, I'm not a demon." He could have said, "Fear not, I'm not a bat." He could have said, "Fear not, I'm not a werewolf." But he specifically said, "Fear not, I am not a ghost." So that if he chose that term, there's something to it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk a
There
little bit
is
about.
something in front of your screen that you're gonna want to move.
Yeah, there's something.
Let's talk about NPI. NEPI. I'm sorry.
NEPI.
So
Yep.
tell us about the new era paranormal investigators, and what your vision in starting that was, and what your vision is now. That's to both of you.
Well, it's gonna be interesting to hear Cooper's thought on this, but the original concept was to continue the uh, opportunity to have young adults in the exploration of paranormal and joining the community while also creating original content. And it was to have a good environment for them to learn about our community and just get more experience with it.
I would say It's about investigating in a respectful manner, especially when you're filming it. That can be really important. And it's about bringing all sorts of people to the paranormal, young people, LGBTQ people, all these people that aren't typically seen in the paranormal field.
So I like that a lot, and I'll tell you why I like that a lot. I'm definitely not a young adult now. I guess I had my former co-host nicknamed me the OG of the paranormal field. I'm like, I've only been doing this for 32 years. Come on now, but I like the fact that you know that's what it's about is bringing on the new generation, because it's not as bad now. But a couple years ago, there was a lot of drama in the field.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of that drama was because the old school thought that they should be higher up on the pedestal than some of these new ones coming in. And that's not what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be a family. I take pride in training the newer generation. You know, I want to make sure, I want to, like I said, eventually I want us to be recognized as actual science and not no pseudoscience. So, you know, I bring them on and, you know, so I take pride in that. So I like that a lot.
Well, the other thing is it
So
can
you
be overwhelming to try to join the paranormal community right out instead of having a group based for young adults.
So you built both a team and content. How do you
Yeah.
balance investigation versus production?
Cooper, you got a thought on that one?
I think trying to find the words, sorry. I think it's important to see it as an investigation first and production second, because it's always more important to investigate and see the spirits and to talk to them than to. I see a lot of shows trying to make it more dramatic and more hyped up than it is, I guess, more scary than it would be. And I think that that's because they're taking it from more of that production aspect of like, oh, we can get famous off of this. And others are trying to take it, like us, we're trying to take it into, we can show people about the paranormal field and about these awesome historical places through this. So we use it as sort of a tool, I guess, the production is a tool to show off what we do and these awesome places that we're going to and these awesome spirits that we're communicating with.
So this is a question I don't ask everybody. It's a question I've asked since season one, but it's not a question I ask everybody. It's a question that I ask people that I have a respect for, hopefully a mutual respect for, that I have a respect for, and it's kind of in the my word for it is the para pop culture. That's my word. So, and I mean, I understand. Yes, I'm technically part of the para pop culture, and there's good and there's bad in the para pop culture. So my question is, and then we'll discuss a little bit. My question is, I want both of you to answer it. I want you both to give your opinion on it. What do you guys see as the good and the negative in the para pop culture?
So for me, a lot of it is seeing disrespect towards spirits. I don't like that it's part of history and people will go in and they'll disrespect the disabled community, the mentally ill community. Like people go into asylums and mental hospitals and just completely butcher what it is to be disabled or mentally ill or any sort of thing like that, or any sort of minority. I'm doing my senior thesis. I'm a senior in college in media. I'm doing my senior thesis on how paranormal reality shows treat disability and mental illness, and the answer is it's not very good. And it's disrespectful, and I think it's really hurting both the paranormal community and the disabled community. because paranormal reality treats disability in a way where it's kind of like a freak show. It's no different than the circus a lot of times, where they're going in and they're treating this as like, oh, haha, well, like I live near the Richardson, and people will go in and be like, oh, it's so scary, there were disabled people here, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, it doesn't make sense, and it's like they're not seeing everyone as human in a way. And I think that's a big issue in the paranormal, that like spirits were human. And so when people are talking to someone and telling them off, yelling at them, it's just not good. That's really the bad part of paranormal pop culture to me.
I think the negative is trying to join the field for exposure specifically. Like, it's a good way to showcase how you are doing things and how you are helping to further the field, but it's not supposed to be just for exposure and gaining followers and becoming famous. Granted, it kind of takes care of itself, because if you go in for only that, you're not going to be successful.
No.
So to me, the positive is, I'll start with the positive because I like being positive. So we'll start with the positive. So to me, the positive is it attracts more people to the field, and it's more open now. So when I started back in 1992, I had, especially I'm from Western Kentucky. So not only am I from the Bible Belt, I'm from like the capital of the Bible Belt. We have more churches than we have people, and so I didn't have anybody to mentor me. Especially I didn't even have ghost hunters, ghost adventurers, ghost brothers, ghost dogs, ghost sisters, ghost cows, whatever. I had none of that. I had Robert Stack one Friday a month on Unsolved Mysteries would do the unexplained. That's what we had. And then we had library books. I checked out so many library books. I actually got called down to the office. And my principal looked at me and was like, Kent, should we be worried about you checking out these books? No. So, yeah, so that's the positive. And it also makes it where we can talk about it. Like I said, when I was younger, I'd run into somebody at Walmart and they'd find out what I was doing. And, I think they'd want to, do exorcism on me, whatever. Now when I went into Walmart, they're like, "Oh, you mean like ghost hunters?" And then all of a sudden they tell me a story about how their house or their grandparents' house is, is haunted or whatever. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is there's too many people out there that aren't really investigators; they're entertainers. Yeah. So they go around and everything is a demon. And then we got groups that charge $60 for a 5x8 picture, not even autographed, just a 5x18 picture. So that's the bad thing. A good friend of mine who's definitely in the parapop culture, Gavin Kelly, he once said parapop culture, para-unity is dead, and it may be, but that's because we have this one team, and I don't mention the names anymore because it's just not with it. But I call them the Spice Girls of the paranormal field because they're just about entertainment. They're not about actual substance. They got a big following, but so I didn't really have a problem with any of that until they made it into a problem for the field. That particular duo has now made it where there's places. And I'm talking about big locations, famous locations, infamous locations, whatever term you want to use. Like I'm talking about Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, Harriman Hospital, Brushy Mountain, Octagon Hall. They no longer allow you to go live on a video, and you can't release your videos until they approve it because of these two. So that's when I have a problem. So that's the negative. But I think the positive is more than the negative. I think the people that tune into that entertainment, they understand it's entertainment. They're not tuning in to see what it's really like. They're tuning in to be entertained. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. Matter of fact,
My positive is definitely the people that we meet along the way, because, I mean, me and Cooper met because of Deathwalker, our local TV series. I've met a lot of good people in the paranormal community, so.
I think my positive is that it definitely brings it to a lot of people. I would not be here without paranormal pop culture, the books, the TV shows, no matter how horrible some of them may be. And I think it brings it to a lot of different people.
So
and I think
here's a funny story.
Yeah.
Here's a funny story. So one of my best friends in the field, I consider him a brother, is Aaron G. Thompson. So most people know Aaron G. Thompson for 28 Days Haunted. On Netflix. It was a big thing. I never watched the episode. I never watched one episode until Aaron was. So I do a Paracon. I host a Paracon down here every year.
Okay.
This is my fourth one. So my first year and this year, Aaron was my headline speaker, whatever. So he was going to come on to my podcast. So I decided I needed to binge watch 28 Days Haunted.
Yeah.
When Aaron got on my show, I told him he owed me 8 hours of my life back. But I say that to say this. That was sad because a lot of people only know him for that, and he's actually been investigating for like 25 years. He's one of the best investigators I know. He has his own theory of what spirits are and stuff. And but to the public, they know him for 28 Days Haunted. So that brings, like you said, that opens the door for them to get interested into the field. So That's the good thing. And then, and like I said, I consider Aaron a really good friend. Matter of fact, he wrote the introduction to my first book. So my second book, the one that's getting ready to come out, is actually about the parapop culture and about whether we need to have ethics in the paranormal field. And the title of it is, "It Takes More Than Yelling Demon and Wearing Skinny Jeans to Bury a Paranormal Investigator." So, I don't really care if you wear skinny jeans or not. If you're over 30 and you're still wearing skinny jeans, we might need to talk. But, otherwise, I don't care. I tell people all the time, I investigated BDUs. I'm a veteran, so that's what I'm comfortable with. It's not really an attack on your clothing choices. It's an attack because it's not really an attack at all. It's an observation of, most of the people you see running around screaming everything is a demon, or younger people wearing skinny jeans and thinking they're good looking and charging $60 for a picture. So that's what it's about. It's not about skinny jeans. So let's move on, because we could talk about that forever. And I agree with both of you exactly. I have people on my team. When you join my team, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys, because I respect you guys. You can't just. My team's a large team, but you can't just join my team. There's a process. I interview you first, and if I think you're a good fit, then you come to. We have monthly team meetings, so you come to a meeting, and then we actually have an orientation, and then you actually go into training, and because one of my main rules is we don't provoke. There's no provoking, but people are like, well, sometimes you have to get rude with spirits. I'm like, well, that's not necessarily provoking. What you have to understand with provoking is about intent. So if you're screaming at a spirit for no reason, this is the example I like to use, and then you guys can add your opinions, and then we'll move on to something more positive. So the way I explain my view of provoking to people and why we don't allow it on our team is I wouldn't go to JD's house and scream at him and holler at him and expect a positive interaction. So why would we do that to a spirit? Mm-hmm. What's your guys' take on provoking?
I don't like it because it's, like you said, it doesn't treat spirits like they're human. It treats them as this sort of like other, and it doesn't bring a sort of good ethics or look to the paranormal to act that way.
Yeah, I don't feel that it's necessary. I've never actually done it, so that's how irrelevant it is.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the word that we mentioned earlier, and that's parunity.
Yes.
Most of the people in the field have got tired of that word because there's no real true parunity. But the problem really with that is nobody really knows what parunity is. There's no definition for it. I'm actually a big person in collaborating with teams and helping teams. And I know you guys are too. So that's kind of my question. That was my lead way. Was that good? You like that? So you worked with multiple teams. How important do you think it is? How important do you think collaborations are to the field?
Brings a lot of new ideas.
I don't think that there would be so much of a paranormal field without collaboration, because it's field means that it's many people and then it's all different ideas. So without like collaboration and unity, there is no paranormal, really.
And I agree with that. To me, a collaboration is a chance to learn from another person. I've been doing this since I came over on the Mayflower, I think. And but I'm still learning every day. I like to tell people, the way I like to put it is, my philosophy is you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. So I'm growing every day. I'm learning new philosophies, new equipment, new everything. So yeah, exactly. So to me, collaborations are about respect, no ego, and doing it the right way. Because if you're doing this with an ego, you're not doing it right. So that's what collaborations are to me.
Yeah, if we didn't share our ideas, we wouldn't grow as a field. So that's part of making this into a science if we end up going that way one day.
Let's talk a little bit about your philosophy, your methods. So how do you guys approach an investigation? Are you more structured, or you're just more going with the flow?
I would say most of the time we go with the flow. We have a structure of how we do things because we usually talk about the history, then do a psychic walkthrough, even though our psychic isn't part of the history. But then after that, the investigation just kind of flows naturally.
I usually go in with like a game plan, but not really a structure. You know what I'm saying? So I'll go in and, like you said, with the history, then I'll be like, well, let's start here. But then you have to let the location and the spirits dictate your investigation. Otherwise, So do you guys do baseline reading before you go into a location, so you can measure a difference, so you just go in and what you get is what you get?
We don't really do a baseline. We should, but
Yeah.
we have to
I don't know if it's a should thing. I like to do them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the more.
I actually got into a discussion,
Yeah.
a heated discussion, I guess, with a guy on my team page 2 weekends ago. It probably should have been a heated discussion, but it was a bad day to be talking to me. My team lead had just been rushed to Vanderbilt for another stroke, and I was at a funeral for my preacher from my childhood. So it was, and he wanted to argue with me about philosophy and stuff. He's like, how can you do a baseline when it has nothing to do with paranormal? I'm like, first of all, I've been doing this for 34 years. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying I know everything, but I'm like, to me, a baseline is less about the information and more about being able to measure a response. For example, we do, especially when we're doing a residential investigation, we do a EMF baseline. We do a we do a yeah we do a thermal baseline, and then we do
Yeah.
a baseline with SLS, which
Hmm.
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying necessarily that the EMF reading is going to detect something, but if your baseline is a 2 and all of a sudden you get a 23,
Mhm.
something's going on there.
Yep.
So that's to me, that's what the baseline is about. It's not proving anything, it's not disproving anything. It's just giving me, especially when I go back and edit film, it's just giving me a timestamp to look at stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and take note of any fluctuations that are natural, especially false readings for the SLS cameras.
Yeah, So well, let me ask this next question, then we'll get to equipment because I do want to talk about equipment. So what do you guys think the field needs to do to move forward? Do you think we need more structure, or do you think we need more openness?
I think more openness for sure, because I think that
That's
the
my agent.
openness makes way for new ideas, that everyone comes at it with a different approach and new sort of idea about what this all could be. And I think that I don't remember where I was going with that actually.
I think structure is important, but you also have to be open to what we collect when we're doing
What's up,
investigations.
Robert? What's up, Rob? Okay. Rob, since you're on my show, I need you to behave this time.
It doesn't.
Rob likes to disrupt my shows. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about equipment.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot more equipment now than there was back in the 1700s when I started investigating. So, what equipment do you guys use? What equipment do you trust, and what equipment do you not trust?
Well, I have a theory behind this. Most of the equipment that we have nowadays and use regularly was not designed for the paranormal field, obviously, with the exception of the spirit box. But, so there's more stuff that we can always include and implement into investigation, but stuff to do baselines, know how it's going to react to certain environments and all that.
I think a lot of equipment now was made by people in other communities, like people in electronics and people in all different, like, construction, whatever. And so it's kind of newer. I like using AVP recorder, REM pod, and I like turning flashlight off and on. That's one of my favorites.
Yes, Rob, I'm outside. I'm on my backup computer today, so I decided I'd get some fresh air. So I have all the fancy equipment, and just like you said, JD, just like you said, I tell people all the time that what we have to realize is 99.9% of the equipment that we have was never intended for paranormal investigations. Somebody smarter than me, hopefully smarter than me, decided, hey, this might work in the paranormal. So that's the issue. Now, with that being said, there's no right way or wrong way to investigate. There's no playbook, you know. So if the gadgets work for you, the gadgets work for you. What I use the gadgets for is to reinf- reinforce what I already know. So and I always like to use 2 or 3 pieces of equipment together. So like if I have a REM pod, I like to use it with another REM pod or a bill. Or
Yeah,
any of that.
reading on multiple devices.
So so if you have devices that corroborate with each other, then you might have something, you know. And exactly, Rob. So yeah, so to me, the most time when I really use when I think equipment really comes useful for me is if I'm doing a residential investigation. Yes, we still do residential investigations. I know a lot of people don't anymore, but we still do. So if I'm doing a residential investigation, it's a lot easier to come up to the homeowner and be like, "This is what I captured," than it is to go up to the homeowner and be like, "Well, this is what I feel is going on." So to me, that's what the equipment's for. It's not to prove anything. It's just to back up what you already sense or you already know.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a good question. This is a fun question. And Rob, you can answer this one too in the comment boxes. So where do you see the paranormal field heading in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you think the paranormal field is going?
If you want to go first, I have a long-winded answer.
Okay. I think it's going in a very media-based outlook, where to succeed, you kind of have to have some sort of YouTube channel, podcast, some sort of social media to get yourself out there. But I guess that's kind of every field nowadays.
Well, that's a portfolio.
Yep. And also I'm a media production major, so I might be kind of biased in that. But I think that it's heading in more of a direction that's based on entertainment because of that. Where it's very based on like, oh, look at this, look at that, and it's supposed to scare you, and I'm not very into the scaring thing. I don't think that a lot of things are very scary in the paranormal. I'm more scared of falling downstairs than I would be of a ghost, and it's more likely that I'd fall down the stairs and see a ghost anyways. But I think that I wanted to head more of in a direction of more people writing books and stuff, but I don't know how realistic that is. Because it's harder to get published than to be on YouTube, to be fair.
No, there's good odds because of YouTube.
Yeah.
But I see it heading in a media direction, but more of a historical documentary type of way, because that's what we're currently working on with the Remnants Project under NEPI. Trying to use paranormal investigating to uncover more history and make an impact that way.
Yeah.
And we're not the only ones who have figured out that that's probably the path to make this more realistic and more engaging for a lot more people.
Yeah, I think personally, I think we're in a better spot today than we were last year. It's the year before. I think we got where it was more about entertainment than content, and I think we're going slowly back to that.
That's low.
To that. So let's see what Rob says. The entertainment is extremely dead from the media side. I think there's a shift of perhaps a divide between many where some are heading to the roots of paranormal and some are still trying to define it as a science. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think what he means by the entertainment side is actual, like, high caliber TV shows are not really there anymore.
So
Discovery isn't
Rob
picking
actually,
up much in that level of things.
Rob actually told me 2 years ago, Rob, or 3 years ago, when I reached out to him to help as as my brother, when I reached out to him for advice and stuff about my event, he actually said that nobody cares about para celebrities anymore. He's like just get people who are actually going to provide you know provide what you need. So that's what we do, and I agree with that. I don't. I never was a TV show person. I mean, I'll be honest, and I watched Ghost Hunters maybe the first season, the 2 seasons. I never watched. Okay, why don't you say how you said it then?
Well, the impact of the TV shows, you've got two of us here right now that have watched those paranormal shows, and that's
Yeah.
why we get started with it.
You were
I
saying
do know.
earlier, complaining that you were having to watch 8 hours of that one show, but with my senior thesis, I have to watch like every show, all of them, and then write notes about it, and then write a 15-page paper about it. So I very much, I guess, are in deep in that culture.
You're an infantry guy, Rob. Buck up. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually. This is the first time I've shared this in a while. Rob's one of the few people I've actually shared this with. Well, I'm actually in the process of doing a couple episodes of a show, so I mean, I'm not anti that at all. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, and I know you guys are the same way. You even said it earlier. It's content over performance, and that was the only way I did this. I actually lost sleep over this decision for a long time, and I talked to Rob and a few other people that I trust in the field. Whether I should do it, and because my thing is I didn't want to be tied into the entertainment part of the, what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and that's what they said is, we need more of the content over entertainment people out there. So that's why we're doing it. All right. So we're almost out of time. So we're going to do a speed round. Are you ready? Speed round.
Yes.
Favorite location?
Hinsdale.
Van Horn Mansion.
Creepiest moment?
Apparition Western Block.
Honestly, the door slamming by itself at our investigation at the, I'm forgetting the name
Poorhouse.
of it. Yep, poorhouse. Livingston County poorhouse. That was pretty creepy to me.
One piece of equipment you can't live without?
My own feelings.
Camera.
One piece of equipment that is overrated?
K2.
Thousand rods.
EMF.
I'll just shake my head. I won't give my opinion because
That is a lot of words.
Hi, Rob. So yeah. All right. So
I think all I actually got out of that was eat chocolate, so I'm good with that part. I'll listen.
so to me, when people ask me the most overrated equipment, I have two. I have to throw the SLS in there,
Yeah.
and then I have to throw in the K2 meter. I know everybody has a K2 meter in the toolbox, but the thing about the K2 meter is the K2 meter is only in everybody's toolbox because of Grant Wilson. No disrespect to Grant Wilson, but so Grant and Jason, what were their day jobs?
Plumbers.
So what did they already have in the toolkit? A K2 meter. So that's why it became a thing. So
Yep.
Well, the Mel meter also was not designed for paranormal. It was repurposed.
And then, like,
Yeah.
I mean, if we actually talk about everything, you can dissect everything. A REM pod is good, except for the antenna is the weak link. SLS has too many false positives. So, that's why I like to have multiple hits before I worry about it. And I don't ever use my K2 meters. So that's what I'm going to say about that. All right. So we're getting ready to close. So here's what we're going to do. You guys tell me about your podcast, your upcoming projects, all that stuff. Hype yourselves up.
Well, we host our own podcast, the New Era Paranormal Podcast, between me and Irina Kilwees, featuring all kinds of new stories in the paranormal community, from locations to documentaries to events. We have the Remnants Project coming up that we're going to be in production for soon. That's going to be a history-based paranormal building to the history that's already there using paranormal investigation. We'll have a lot more information coming out about that on all the NEPI channels. We have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all at New Era Paranormal. We also have a Remnants Project podcast that ties in a lot of different behind-the-scenes stuff for that series. And tomorrow night, we're going to be doing a live event at the Doss House, online only. But it'll be interesting to see how that comes together.
Well, this is usually the point where I hype up my guest for next week, but I'm not sure who that's going to be yet. I'm hoping it's going to be Kenneth Drake, but I haven't heard back for sure yet. So thank you guys for being on the show. Maybe I can get you guys down here to my Paracon next year. It'll be our 5th year, so we're going big next year. So we know we got Dale Monson coming down. So I don't know who it is yet because I'm still planning this year. So I'm not really that worried about next year yet. You know how that is. So
yeah.
But thank you for joining us, and everybody check them out. And we will see everybody same bat time, same bat channel next week. Thank everybody for tuning in.
Thank you. This was great.